Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and today I'll be reviewing the Jones Mind Expander. This board is equipped with Jones Snowboard's Christensen Surf Camber Rocker profile. That is a mouthful, but basically what that means is you're gonna have camber in between your feet with a giant rocker section in the nose and a tiny rocker section in the tail. What that's gonna do is that's gonna give you all that power, drive, and pop you're looking for with that ease in and out of turns and that giant float section in it, so you know this thing is gonna sit up in that fresh snow. This board comes in a 146, a 150, a 154, a 158, a 162, and a 166. I rode this board at Copper Mountain where it was a warm spring sunny day. The only caveat to that was we got about 2 feet of snow the day before where the top of the mountain was closed, so the day I rode this thing, it was really untouched still. The snow started off as that cream cheese, but slowly turned into like slow mashed potatoes towards the end of the day. But I mean, once you got in the trees, they were pretty much untouched, especially towards the top of the mountain there where the snow stayed great all day, fresh tracks, and it was honestly one of those great POW days that you only dream of. And I use my Ride Fuse boots and Jones Mercury bindings. When we're talking overall flex on this board, it is gonna have a directional flex to it. Because of how big this rocker zone is, you're gonna feel that that nose is gonna be quite a bit softer than the rest of the board. The tail, even though it does have a little bit of rocker in it, it doesn't feel crazy soft or anything like that like the nose does. And right underneath your feet, it's gonna be that mid-flexing board, where when you do go to foot steer it, it does feel torsionally stiffer actually, where it's not the most foot steerable, but that's not even a word, it's okay, we're gonna make it a word today. But even though it's not the most foot steerable board out there, you can swivel this thing around, so getting in those tight trees, not too much of a problem. Now when we move over into the stability portion, it is a fairly stable board, especially in that fresh snow. It floats really well, it'll go through all that stuff. Even in the chunder, it's fairly stable. I would recommend staying low on it just because of how much this thing does swivel. It kind of will bounce off of those moguls or those just fresh snow patches where you're gonna wanna be lower and not get bounced around too much just because of all that rocker in the nose and that shorter tail. When you're ollieing this thing on a fresh groomer, because of how short that tail is with that rocker mixed in, it's not gonna be the best ollieing board out there. It's not gonna shoot you to the moon or anything like that. A lot of that power is gonna be coming from underneath that back foot. It does help though, because they did put a little bit of camber underneath that back foot more. It stores up a little energy, but it's not gonna be the best. I found that when ollieing in fresh POW, especially that hot POW, it definitely ollies better. That nose creates almost like a little takeoff for it, a little lip for it, to just almost pretty much pop off with ease, where the more energy you put into this thing, the more you're gonna overpower it. So just keep that in mind. Little ollies, totally fine. When you're trying to ollie over a slow sign, stuff like that, you might struggle a little bit. Remember to like, subscribe, click that bell, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of the videos we have coming out. This board is actually extremely fun to butter on, especially the nose here, because you have all of that rocker mixed with the spoon in the nose. It just holds you really well. In the fresh POW, you can lean on that thing, you can even over lean a little bit, and you're gonna be totally fine just because of how much surface area you have to work with. Your sweet spot is huge, so just feel free to use that whole nose and you're gonna be okay. On the tail, not as big of a sweet spot. It's gonna be pretty much right where it starts to bevel up a little bit before that contact point, and this thing does wheelie like a champ back there. Even in like 2 inches of snow all the way up to 2 feet, you can just lean straight back, and because of that spoon on it, it's gonna hold you really well. Honestly, super fun to butter on. It definitely excels in this category. This board carves extremely well. The only caveat I would say to that is when it does get in that beat up snow on the medium and larger carves, especially at high speeds, it gets bounced around a little bit. The main thing there is that nose feels like it kind of wants to wander on you just because of how much rocker is in it and how wide it is. But as long as you keep that weight on your back foot there, it's gonna feel pretty stable to you. Where when I was just pushing through everything, had all that weight just kind of leaning back on this, I could definitely feel that camber engaging the edge here and really holding actually pretty nicely. It will Euro carve, no problem for you. I didn't have any problem with toe drag or heel drag, anything like that. As long as you're on that smooth groomer, it's gonna do just fine. I probably wouldn't recommend doing it in 2 feet of wet snow, but you know, that fresh groomer, it's gonna handle it just fine. And as I mentioned before, when you're on those short carves, it's gonna wiggle right through. So in super tight trees, you have nothing to worry about. This thing was just a wiggle machine through there. It really wants to just stay above the snow and just keep trucking. Rider in mind. The rider for this board is somebody that needs a POW board and really wants to expand their quiver. Sure, they can ride this on daily conditions, but this thing really excels in that fresh snow and in those tight trees where this person might want to advance a little bit in their riding, so they need something that's going to be nice and maneuverable and just kind of get them into the tree riding a little bit more. If you're looking for another way to get involved into the community, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. Sure, I could explain what it is here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. I really enjoyed this board. It does handle pretty much every condition well, but that being said, I would recommend keeping it to that powder board specifically. You can take it on the groomers, that sort of thing, but this thing just really excels when you get into that fresh snow. Especially if you're looking for like that day after snow, that 2-day after, where there's just tiny pockets in like really tight secluded areas. This is gonna be the board for that. A totally great option to add to the quiver. Comparable boards, the Libtech Orca, the Roam Service Dog, and the Nitro Fin Twin. Recommended bindings, the Jones Orion, the Union Strata, and the Salomon Hologram. This has been my review for the Jones Mind Expander. If you're looking for a pair of bindings to throw on this bad Larry, why don't you go watch the video for the Jones Orion and our recommended bindings.